So help me get acclimated.
Okay, sounds good.
Om Jnanat Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Nati Srapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapada Kamala Shri Guru Vaisnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sahagana Sagana Tam Tam Sujivam Sadvaitam Sarvaditam Varijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pranam Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakam Hare Krishna Karuna Sindham Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopikakan Radhakanta Namostute Bhakta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Shabanu Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyacha Patitanam Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityananda Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Chatyadi Sitari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaurabhakti Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaurabhakti Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sri Gaur. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Anybody here? Fanny's iPhone is here.
If people want to start turning on the cameras, that would be really nice to kind of like make a more friendly environment, I guess. Sweet. Hi, Kamini.
I guess I can change this view, right? So I can see more people. Oh, cool.
Yeah, if you click in the top right, I think there should be a little bit.
Okay, cool.
So hi everyone. Today we have Bada Hari Prabhu with us today, and he's going to be teaching us about how to connect with the scriptures more, because like Prabhupada's books help us connect with the mission, and it's a really important topic. And I don't think people get to hear you speak about the scriptures as much, which will be really exciting. So I think with that, I will give it to you.
Okay. Thank you all. Nice to see everybody, sort of. See your names. Thank you for coming. So I was thinking this afternoon as I was watching riots on, national news and all of these things, that one might ask, what's the relevancy of this topic? Why, what's the importance of scriptures, or what's the importance of gaining a taste for hearing scriptures? And I guess really the answer to that in short is that, where is your shelter? There's not a lot of shelter in this material world. Everything that we can see, everything's topsy-turvy. And even if it doesn't look topsy-turvy, it is topsy-turvy. There's nothing that we can hang on to for very long. Our very lives slip away. So we think historically, the books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, they were spoken at a time of crisis. Like Arjuna's situation was a much bigger crisis, at least personally, than ours is. He was confronted with the war right in front of him, people just waiting to kill him. And he found time to hear from Krishna. He considered that important. And Parikshit Maharaj was waiting to die. And his question was, what is the duty of a person? What's our duty, especially one who is about to die? And so he considered it, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, so important that it was the only thing he did until he left his body. So these scriptures are our actual shelter. And why is that? And that's because they're non-different from Krishna. Krishna's personally present. Prabhupada said one day we'll see Krishna in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So gaining a taste for hearing these scriptures, for hearing these books, means developing love for Krishna. they're actually considered synonymous. There's a famous verse, Dharma swanusita pumsa visvaksena kata suya no parayad yadi ratim shama evahi kevalam, that whatever else you do in your life, Shukadeva Goswami is saying, or Sutta Goswami is saying, that we may do so many things nicely, successfully or not successfully, whatever. But if at the end we don't develop attraction for hearing about Krishna, no pariyad yadi ratim, if there's no rati, if there's no desire to hear about Krishna, Krishna Katha, then shrama, it's all a waste of time. Whatever you've done is a waste of time. So these are the heavy statements. So we do want to have this attraction, because this attraction means that we're connected with Krishna, even in the face of death, even in the face of greatest trauma. We can put that all aside, we can forget it all, and we can simply place our minds and our hearts at the lotus feet of the Lord. So this is a relevant topic. That's my point. Today and always, in every situation. So one thing I want to say kind of at the beginning is that originally there was some discussion that this could be about Srimad Bhagavatam specifically, and now it's been made a little more general topic. But I just wanted to mention that there's a two-part seminar. It's about 3 hours each by Radhika Raman Prabhu, and it's called The Glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. And if you want to fall in love with Bhagavatam and just realize what an amazing scripture it is, you got to watch that seminar. He gave that at ISV at ISKCON Silicon Valley, I don't know, a few years ago. You can just Google it, Glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, Radhika Raman Prabhu. So if all you get out of this talk is to go and watch that, I'll consider it successful. So one thing I wanted to start by saying is that actually a taste for scriptures, to have actually a taste for scriptures is a high stage of devotional service. In the 10th canto, it said, Nirvritta Tarshar Upagiyamana. The actually scriptures, especially Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, they're relished. Who can relish them? They're relished by pure souls, people who are completely liberated from all material desires. They're done with this world. They have no interest in anything else. They're free from all lust, all greed, all envy, all anger. And they're the ones that can relish this Srimad Bhagavatam. Or all of our scriptures really, Srimad Bhagavatam begins with Dharma projita kaitavo triparamo nirmatsaranam satam. So it gives us a hint that there's nothing material about this. There's nothing that we're going to get from this study that's going to facilitate our material life, really. And if we're approaching religion for any kind of material motives, this is not the place. So, and it says, and it's understandable by those who are nirmatsaranam, those who are completely free from envy, from any kind of material motivation or material feelings. So this is actually the qualification to study. This you can say this is the primary audience, the target audience of our scriptures. They're very lofty, but there's good news for the rest of us, like myself, who aren't on that platform. That even though we can't have this kind of taste, so for us, then Bhagavatam says that it's babosada, nivritta tarshar upagiyamana And Bhavosadat Chotramano Birama, that, but for others, those who are on the path of birth and death, that this same thing is like medicine. It's the right medicine that can cure the disease of birth and death. And it does become pleasing to the heart. Now, if we generally wouldn't think of developing a taste for medicine, right? It's not, oh, I have a taste for, taking bitter medicine. So if we describe things in that way, it's maybe like, what's the possibility of developing a taste? But Chotramano Birama, simply by taking it carefully and hearing regularly, there is a taste. We will develop a taste. The Rupa Goswami, I'm sure you know everything that I'm saying, but anyway, I'll keep talking. But Rupa Goswami compares that hearing and chanting, or the name of Krishna, the topics about Krishna, he says that they're all very, very sweet, like sugar candy. But unfortunately, we're afflicted by the disease of avidya, or ignorance. We have this disease. And because of that, we can't taste anything sweet. In fact, it tastes bitter. It's like bile. He uses that word. It becomes, it's afflicted by bile. So everything doesn't taste good. But then he says, but it's wonderful. And he says, but still, it's wonderful that even though this is our situation, it's wonderful that simply by, let's see, what does he say? Let me read it. Anudinam, yeah, he says, adarat anudinam. If every day or regularly, or 24 hours a day, somehow or other, if we carefully hear, if we make it a commitment, a determination in our life, that I need to hear, I need to let this information, these words of Krishna, these words of our acharyas, I need to let those sink into my heart. He says, then it's wonderful that simply by doing that, the disease of ignorance, what had probably caused it, called it the causeless unwillingness to serve Krishna. It's destroyed at the root, and then a natural taste awakens. So this is, so we can, I had an interesting experience like this one time, how this actually works. This is many years ago, maybe 40 years ago or so, before you all were in your current bodies, I think. I was in, where was I? I was in Laguna Beach at that time. And I heard this one lecture. And it wasn't by Srila Prabhupada, it was by one of his disciples. And it was a very powerful lecture, but it just burned my heart. It was so painful to hear that. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, that you've heard a talk or something and you're like, "Arr." So I was, maybe you're not like that, but anyway, that's kind of how I felt, that, wow, this is, but part of me knew that what this person is saying is true. I knew that what they're saying is true, but it was just somehow or other, I was in this space where I couldn't stand to hear it. It really hurt me to hear it. So for some reason, I still don't know why, but for some reason I thought, well, let me just listen. I know what he's saying is right, even though it bugs me, but let me just listen to it again. So I actually wound up listening to that same lecture every day for like a week. So maybe this will sound sadistic to you, I don't know. But it's very interesting that this is actually what happened. As I heard that, the truth of what he was saying began to touch my heart. And I felt like my angst and my kind of discontent and my anger, it just all dissipated. It was a beautiful experience, really. And I became joyful. And I learned a couple things from that, is that by this determination to hear, it actually purifies the heart, and it does become sweet, just like Rupa Goswami said. It does become sweet. And I also saw that, our kind of lack of, or in myself, my lack of enthusiasm. Sometimes we want a pat on the back, or it's okay, you're doing good. And of course, we do all need some encouragement. That's not wrong. But at the same time, the real enthusiasm, or the taste comes when the heart becomes pure. I could see that. There was a little bit of purification that took place. And because of that purification, I felt like I was more enlivened in devotional service, and I actually had an attraction for hearing. So anyway, this was kind of my own personal experience with this idea. Now, by hearing and by these different experiences over the years, I guess I kind of developed faith in hearing, that I may not, because it can be a struggle to hear. As we go about our life and we go about in the mature world, we get covered. We might have, chanted nicely or had an ecstatic kirtan and felt great, but at the next moment, we're covered over again. Has anybody ever felt like that? that yesterday it was Hari Bol, and today it's, so we have that experience of kind of, what we used to call bhakti yo-yo, the ups and downs of spiritual life. Sometimes we're enlivened, and sometimes we're more covered. And it's actually just the modes of nature. It's the covering of the mode of ignorance that kind of covers us. And in that situation, hearing scripture, actually, there's not a lot of taste. There isn't. But if we persevere, or if we have a regular habit of hearing, if we bring it in, then we'll experience that we climb out of the modes. I mean, I experience it. We start reading, and maybe I don't feel like reading, but I do. I keep reading, or keep hearing a class, and gradually I find that I'm rising, out of the mode of tamagun up to, up a little bit. So anyway, these kinds of experiences give us faith in the scripture that Krishna's there, Krishna's purifying my heart, and Krishna's a shelter. When I was a young devotee, I'm still a young devotee. Well, I'm not so young, but spiritually I'm pretty young. So anyway, this let me back up. Where'd it go? Lost my notes. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, this idea, if we have a little commitment to hearing, then we gradually develop faith in that. And it's interesting, when Krishna is speaking to Uddhava in the Bhagavad Gita, or in the Uddhava Gita, the other Gita, one of the other Gitas, there's a very wonderful verse that he said, Yadrichaya makatado jatu shadastuya pumam. So he says that jata shada, if somehow or other by good fortune, one develops faith in hearing about me, if this is, Krishna considers this a preliminary, or a foundational qualification. He kind of defines that as the beginning of bhakti, this faith in hearing about him. So this jata shraddha, this faith awakens. Yadricha matkatar, Krishna kata, Krishna speaking personally. Then, and he gives a couple other things. Nirvino, if one's not too disgusted, too fried, or not desucked, or not too attached, then such a person can take up devotional service and quickly make progress. So that's the idea, is that we need, Krishna's saying we need to awaken this faith. And he says it's by good fortune. It's good fortune. So that good fortune of developing faith, that, because we're talking about developing taste, but first of all, we need faith that here is Krishna. Let me take shelter of Krishna. This will be good for me. So, and this faith develops by association with devotees. In Los Angeles, this was, 42 years ago, 43 years ago, I had the association of Dravida Prabhu. I don't know how many of you know Dravida. Well, 42 years ago, he was exactly the same. He used to sit down next to me at lunch, and he'd start speaking these verses. And I was thinking, who is this person, And he was like effulgent. And he'd go, wow, listen to this one. And, and he'd quote this verse. And this means, and he wasn't showing off like, I'm a senior devotee, I know lots of verses. There wasn't like a tinge of that in him. He was just so excited. And so by his association, I thought, I want to learn verses too. So I started, learning verses, and those verses became like friends, like dear friends, that I could call upon difficult times, so I think of him, when, that he's someone that helped develop within me this attraction for the scriptures. So by good fortune, we can develop this this attraction. So I guess let me, we can stop here shortly. But, a couple more things. Is that okay? A couple more. So just the idea is that genuine taste comes later, but we need to understand our situation, where we're coming from, who we are, and what we're dealing with. We're actually trying to conquer the material energy, and our tool is the scriptures, is hearing. So we need to, I would say, to develop taste, we need a commitment to regular hearing and to careful hearing. I think more important than reading a lot is to really chew on what you read or what you hear. Let it sink in. Think about it, you'll experience something wonderful. There's a couple other things. Is that so? This hearing is part of our way of life. It's just part of what we do. As much as chanting or kirtan, japa, if we can incorporate this regular habit, even a little bit. Prabhupada used to encourage us to read an hour or two a day. He kind of wanted that from his disciples. And Vaisheshika said something wonderful. He said, if we consider how much effort Prabhupada put into writing his books, we should be prepared to put an equivalent amount of effort into understanding them. Nice thought. But that may not be possible immediately. But if we can even develop like what they call mini habits, we can develop mini habits. Maybe I'll read a verse a day. Maybe I'll just open the book, or maybe I'll look at it and think about it. Something that it becomes part of my life. Today, now I'm going to look at Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't know what, but gradually, it will come in. And another suggestion, as I mentioned already, is take your time, let it, chew on it, think about it, and read out loud. Also, association of devotees is very nice. If you can read together with devotees or hear, that's also very powerful. Yeah, there's some other kind of big topics I could bring up, but I think I'll let it go at this. And Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. So we actually have like an anonymous question form that people have been sending questions in from.
Okay.
So I'll read you the first question.
Okay.
The first question is there a level of submission that is required to study and understand the scriptures? If so, how would you develop that mood of submissiveness to read them?
That's a really good question. Well, yeah, ultimately the level of submissiveness is being a pure devotee. That's the ultimate level that we have to come to. But that doesn't come right away. We may react to a lot of what the scriptures say. I remember even during Srila Prabhupada's time, people couldn't necessarily accept everything he was saying. Like I remember one gentleman having a talk with him and saying, "You don't really believe that Narayan has 4 arms, do you?" That's just that. You don't really believe that, do you? I mean, right now I'm reading 5th canto again. It describes the universe, and it's wild. I mean, it's completely wild. Golden mountains that go straight up that are millions of miles tall, and mangoes that are the size of mountain peaks that fall down and break and create rivers. And I mean, it's mind-blowing what's there. It's totally mind-blowing. And do I understand it? No. Can I don't know. But I think the initial level of submission is that, well, maybe there's some truth here. Maybe, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, I mean, the most brilliant people in the world, in the history of the world, thought that these books were worth studying. The Goswamis dedicated their whole lives to studying Srimad Bhagavatam. So if we just have a little faith, even if we can't accept, I mean, there's a lot of things in Prabhupada's books that may be hard for us to handle, even painful to hear. And I remember as a young devotee, I'm coming from a Christian background, and God was just kind of like this big amorphous thing that occasionally cursed people, and so in the mornings during breakfast, they're reading Krishna book, and so I'm hearing about this little blue boy that's playing with his friends, and for me, to like, this is God. These people think that there's this little cowherd boy is God. So but I just made this determination in my mind that, well, I can't understand this. I really can't understand this now, but let me just hear it. So I somehow or other, I had that much faith that I didn't reject it in favor of my mental, because what do we know? I mean, have you, it's like, what do we know? What can we know? Like this COVID thing, what's really going on? You can hear a million different views. What do we believe? What do we believe? What do we not believe? We don't know anything. We just hear a bunch of stuff. Some of it we accept, some of it we don't. I mean, that's right here in our face. What to speak of the spiritual world or other planets, or even the most basic thing in the Bhagavad Gita, that we're not this body, we're a spirit spark in this heart, and we're just like swimming in this ocean of matter, and who are we anyway? So if we can just kind of have a little faith and humility that really I don't know anything. And if I'm going to learn something, I should hear from people that are greater than me. So it seems to me maybe that's like a base level of submission that's required to start. And if we go on with that, gradually these things are revealed, because we can't understand the scripture. We can't understand Bhagavad Gita. We can't understand that I'm a spiritual being. We can't understand any of this until Krishna from within our heart reveals it. That's the only way. It doesn't matter how much we read. If Krishna doesn't reveal it from within our hearts, we're not going to know it. We're not going to know anything. So if we just have this faith, this beginning faith to hear, then the faith will grow. It will grow easily and automatically, because Krishna will reveal himself. Krishna reveals himself. And we're not, just preliminary beginning. And as far as further faith, that's, that comes from Krishna's revelation, from the process. Is that okay?
Yeah, that was great, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Our next question, I think, Mukunda, you had a question, so if you want to unmute yourself and go for it.
Jai Mukunda.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
So nice to see you. I'm missing you.
Missing you. Yeah, one question I had, you emphasized a lot about the importance of regular hearing. And I've found that in order to especially do regular hearing, you have to find people that you can regularly hear from. And sometimes people have the struggle of not knowing, not being able to find a source of constant inspiration. They may try hearing from someone for a little bit and they're like, I'm not really connecting there, and then try to go somewhere else. And then they don't really find a constant flow of inspiration. So I was wondering if you could give any guidance on how someone can find their particular taste, because they say like-minded association, and I think that goes beyond just any devotee, that that goes to your specific what speaks to you.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm certainly like that. I find myself listening to, right now I'm listening to the Radhika Raman Prabhu. I listen to Vaisheshika a lot. And there's some others, Radhanath Swami I listen to. I listen to Srila Prabhupada almost every day, at least some. He's, how could you find that? I think you got to try. I don't know. In one sense, it's kind of easier now than it used to be. You'd have to go to a temple or attend a morning Bhagavatam class, but now, you move. Okay. I don't know what to say except just listen to different devotees and see what moves you. I think that's really all I could say. Don't give up. Don't give up. Try to find something. I also recommend hearing from Srila Prabhupada. I know there's issues around some of the things he says. I listened to Jai Jagannath's class with you guys. So, but the thing is, hearing from someone means associating with them. So when we're reading Prabhupada's books and when we're hearing, reading his purports, we actually have his association. He said those are his devotional ecstasies. So I think it is important to at least try to study or hear Srila Prabhupada's books at some point. So I'd highly recommend that. Anyway, not a great answer to your question, but that's the best I can do. But it's a very nice question for all of us, is that where can I find the inspiration that I need, and work, to look for that. And I think if we sincerely look for that, we will find it, because Krishna will direct it. One time there was a person sitting in front of Srila Prabhupada, and he said to Srila Prabhupada, it's very hard to find a pure devotee or a genuine spiritual master. He said that to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada's response was really interesting. I was thinking when I heard that, I was like, you imbecile, you're in front of Srila Prabhupada and you can't see there's a pure devotee? What, but Srila Prabhupada's response, gladly, was not like that at all. And he said, no, it is not difficult. Simply, you have to be sincere and Krishna will send. So if we really want to hear, probably you've had that experience when you're really struggling with a question or something and you really want to know, then Krishna makes an arrangement and it's just like there in front of you. Somebody tells you, or you open a book and like, there it is. Simply, we have to work on our sincerity of wanting to hear, and we'll find a way. Krishna will arrange it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So wonderful to see all of you.
And I'll encourage everyone again, if you guys are like near your computer and can turn on your video, that'd be great, just so we can see some faces.
Yeah.
So I'll go on to the next question. So this question is asking, people say that Bhagavad Gita is like a bachelor degree, Srimad Bhagavatam is a master's, and Chaitanya Charitamrita is the PhD. And we usually hear that analogy of it. So the question is, does this mean that we have to go in order of that scriptures? Or can we just jump around and go in the order that we desire? And like, what is your advice for that?
Well, they're all equally important, I would say. And it's interesting, Bhakti Siddhanta said that if all of the scriptures of the world disappeared and all we had left was Chaitanya Charitamrita, there would be no loss. So he emphasized that scripture, because Bhagavatam is there and Gita is there. The essence of both of them, they're actually the essence of all of our philosophy is there. And really the essence of our philosophy is in Gita too, especially the way Prabhupada gives it. And it's also there in Bhagavatam. So generally, I would say if you can do it, I would suggest that you go step by step through Srimad Bhagavatam and then through CC. And the whole time you're doing that, read a little Bhagavad Gita each day. I think that would be awesome. I don't think we ever graduate from Bhagavad Gita. It's an amazing book. I don't think, it's just not something you graduate from. All of these books, you can go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. If we think we've understood something, it means we haven't even started, really, because there's so much there. There's so much there. If we think, oh, I know that, it means that our brains are just too dull to really grasp what's there, because they're all infinitely deep. Anyway, having said that, I think, there's no loss in any way you do it. If you're inspired to read a particular book and not another one, then go for it, because our inspiration is kind of delicate sometimes, we may just not, we may think we should do something, but just like don't want to do it. So although it's recommended to go step by step, whatever, still it's all sweet. So if you're inspired to read something at a particular time, and that's the way you can keep yourself motivated, then do that. You just have to, I guess I could say, see what works. We want to be hearing, and you have to find what works for you. we're all, we're all different. Like some people, it's too hard to read, so they have to hear. They just have to listen to lectures, right? I've got a kind of a thing I do every day. I do yoga, stretches, and stuff like that for maybe 45 minutes, and during that time, I'll listen to a class. So I'm too restless. I won't keep up a regular exercise routine if I'm just doing that, because I get bored. And I won't sit down and listen to a class, but somehow or other, if I do the both of them together, I'll get my exercise in, and I'll also listen to a class. So that works. I don't know. That works for me. So, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. The next question is kind of relating to the point of faith that you were talking about earlier.
Mm.
So how can we connect with the scriptures when we aren't sure of how strong our faith is? What would trying to connect with scriptures be the first step? And if not, what would be the first step?
Good question. Well, to even open up a book or to talk to a devotee seriously about spiritual life, that's a level of faith. Most, I would say most people, when they have problems in life, or that question never arises, right? It just never occurs to them that, maybe what I need in life is going to be found in Bhagavad Gita. Most people aren't thinking like that. You'll probably be surprised to know. So they have, zero faith or zero understanding. So if somebody's even thinking like that, it means there's some faith there, that maybe something is there. And of course, faith is the beginning, at ho shraddha. So generally that's the order. At first there's a little faith, and that faith makes us associate with devotees, or allows us to associate with devotees. And by the association of devotees, we get more faith, and we have access to hearing. I had that experience. I got a Bhagavad Gita in an airport, classic case. A few years later, I found myself out in the same airport distributing Bhagavad Gitas. But anyway, so I'd heard about Bhagavad Gita, and I thought, wow, this is cool, So I took the Bhagavad Gita home, and I opened it, and I read the first page, and I just kind of my jaw dropped open, and I thought, I can't understand this, And I just closed the book. And I never read it, until I actually, several years later, I actually moved into a temple. And then I could read it. I could read it, and it made sense. I started unfolding. So I had that practical experience that the books didn't open up for me without the association. So, yeah, generally although it's not like that for everybody. Some people just get a book and they can read it, and, they develop faith, and they take up devotional service. So I guess it's a little different for everyone, but generally speaking, if we want to develop our faith, we need to associate with people who have faith, and then we'll also want to read. We'll develop some excitement for reading. But same thing, if you have enough faith to open up a book, you'll also gain faith from doing that. It's not blind faith. It's not like, we say it all started from a chunk, and you just have to believe us, because you'll never know, right? You'll never know. And we'll change our theory in a couple of years. So we're not asking, we're saying you're a spirit soul. Your origin is the supreme spirit soul, and you can realize that. We can perceive that we're spiritual beings. We can perceive Krishna. So the evolution from faith, at a certain point, you can say that devotional service is an evolution of faith, but at a certain point, it's realized knowledge, so you can't, so the faith is real. It's substantial, even in the beginning, because it's in a reality, an eternal reality, which we can actually come to perceive personally. Yeah, fine, Kristen.
So I'm going to try to combine two questions here together because they're kind of related. So the first part of it is when we have reading that becomes like mechanical and it feels like you're just looking at the words, but it's actually not going into your head. And then similarly, when you are just reading and that passion starts to die out and it feels like that flame is not there, how do you get over both of those cases? And what can we do to like strengthen that as time goes on?
Well, I think the best thing is association. At least that's my personal experience, that if you can associate with people that are excited about reading, then you become excited about reading, about hearing. I mean, I listen to Vaisheshika's classes because he's always really excited about, what he's reading and what they're studying. And it's so genuine, it's infectious. And I think, wow, this is so wonderful. One other thing I think is it's natural that, because we get covered, we talked about this earlier, we may read, we may hear something, and then, that's nice, but then like you said, it becomes just mechanical. Mechanical means we're just in the mode of ignorance, and we can't see the beauty of what's in front of us. It's just, we could be so, like just a normal day, the sun is rising, if we just could perceive, wow, what's the sun? It's so amazing. Everything in front of our face is so inconceivable and amazing, but we can become so kind of dull-headed that we don't think anything's amazing. All of life is amazing. So what to speak of these scriptures? So that happens to us. It happens, it happens to me all the time, because just the covering of the modes of material nature. So sometimes I think it's good to really take time out, to maybe sit with a friend or sit with a few people and spend enough time reading. Like if we just spend a few minutes, it's all good, but somehow or other, if you can take a little time when you really, spend some time, spend sufficient time with the subject to break through, then it becomes exciting in and of itself. That something is boring or not exciting means like we're boring and not exciting. The problem is here. The problem is not in the subject matter. So we need to look at our own hearts. And like I keep glorifying Vaisheshika Prabhu, he's one of my heroes, but he has a retreat that he does every year in Govardhan. Maybe you know about this. And what they do for a month, all during Kartik, is they read 5 hours a day. They don't even discuss that much. They just read. They just read. They just hear. They take turns reading and they're just hearing. They'll discuss a little, but mostly they're just hearing. So, and I haven't had the opportunity to do that, but I've talked to different devotees, your generation devotees that have done that, and they've said it's completely transformed their life. Just having that quantity of hearing, just again and again, it just like, it just opens something up. So that's something also to give some time to hear sufficiently for it to get through, to sink through the modes of nature and to climb out, then it becomes very, very powerful. So those are some thoughts. And again, association really helps.
Thanks so much, Prabhu. Mukunda, I think you said you had a second question, so do you want to go for it?
Yes, hello again.
Hello.
So I was trying to think how to word this. My question, I guess, Prabhu, was you mentioned in the beginning how a scripture like Bhagavatam is so clearly, it doesn't care for material nature, in the sense like it's beyond all the issues that we see in this world. You know, it doesn't care for material subject matter, and it deals with the transcendental subject matter. So when we're like living in a time such as today with coronavirus and rioting and racial issues and all of these things going on, sometimes we try to look to scripture and see like, how does scripture relate to the problems that I'm dealing with right now in my life? Mm-hmm. But it seems like what we need to be trying to do is flip it and be like, how can I become more interested in something beyond these problems?
Yeah.
So how do you make that flip, I guess, because we're always trying to look at things, everything, including scripture, and see how it can solve our material problems directly.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, just like Bhagavad Gita, for instance, Arjuna posed these big questions at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. What about this? What about that? You know what? They were never answered. Krishna never answered them in the course of Bhagavad Gita. You know, he never dealt with those. But the big question was, you know, how can you transcend? And I guess, you know, as maybe it comes with time, but yeah, whatever we're facing in this material world seems so gigantic and like what? Well, I was thinking of it this way: just like if you're asleep and you're dreaming there's a tiger eating you, and you wake up and you're completely, you know, scared and you're sweating and like, a tiger's eating me. Well, the only solution to the tiger dilemma is to wake up, right? It's not to stay asleep and figure out how to fight the tiger, right? So in a similar way, you know, we see this dilemma, that dilemma, but really there's only one huge dilemma, and that is that I've forgotten that I'm a spiritual being, and there's really no dilemma. You know, there's always cataclysms in the material world. We each have our individual cataclysm, which is the death of this body and so on and so forth. But again, back to Krishna and Arjuna, his whole method of solving the problem was to raise the consciousness so that it wasn't a problem anymore. So, you know, it's no longer a problem. And ironically, that's what will actually help us deal with the material world. We're not going to really be able to deal with the problems or help people deal with their problems if we're stuck in the same muck they're in. You know, if we think we're this body and this is all there is, and you know, we can't really help anyone. The real help comes when we can, you know, approach the spiritual platform a little bit. So I again, it's that faith that my solutions or the world's solutions. I mean, that was definitely Prabhupada's vision that the solution to the world's problems was raising our consciousness. I mean, after all the world's problems are due to, you know, the consciousness we have, you know, the world consciousness, the collective consciousness of the human beings is basically what created the mess that we're in. So how possibly can we change the world situation without changing people's consciousness? And if we just think we're the body and the purpose of life is to eat, sleep, mate, and defend in nice, comfortable ways and just ways, and, you know, whatever it is, you know, it's not enough. We actually need to come to the spiritual platform. Tell me, was that in line with your question?
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Did I get off topic?
No, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, bro.
So, yeah, again, we do want to solve the world's problems in one sense, you know. We are concerned that people, it's not that we're not concerned that people are suffering, but basically we're creating our own suffering by our warped mentality, you know, and that can be cured if we develop love for Krishna.
Love for Krishna instead of love for Corona.
Yeah. I think Krishna deserves equal time, don't you? Every single web page you go to now, right? Even you drive on the freeway, it's like, you know, imagine if every page, everywhere you open, it was like, don't forget Krishna. Krishna actually cares about you. It'd be a different situation. Anyway.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. So the next question is on a similar line of faith. It's kind of more general though. So like, how do we know that our scriptures are to trust and are completely true when every religion has a scripture of their own?
Yeah. Well, there are, I mean, if you, just going back to this class that Radhika Raman Prabhu gave, if you watch that, I mean, he's a scholar, and he's studied what other scholars say about the Bhagavatam, how they look at it, how they view it. And it's not a matter of something is wrong. There's truth found in the Bible. There's truth found in the, you know, in any scripture. There's something there, but it's just the quality of what we have is by far superior. It's just on another level. Dharma projita kaitabo. What, you know, look for yourself. Read whatever you want to read and just compare that to Bhagavatam, and you won't find anything superior. But just on a personal level, yeah, so that's, you know, that's one thing. If you believe what scholars say, if you believe what enlightened people say, that's good. But on a personal level, as Srila Prabhupada said one time, the absolute truth has the power to make itself known, right? So we're not dealing, I mean, our conviction is when we're reading Bhagavatam, when we're reading Bhagavad Gita, we're associating with Krishna, and he can reveal himself to us. He can make himself known. And I know I had that, well, I read the Bible as a kid, or at least I went to church and studied the Bible. And when I started reading Bhagavad Gita and our scriptures, it was like all of a sudden everything made sense that I'd read in the Bible. it was like, oh yeah, this is what that was saying, but they didn't really explain it very well, or people didn't understand, but it's very clear. So it just became clear to me that whatever the benefit there would be from reading the Bible was like that plus a million times from even reading Bhagavad Gita, what to speak of Bhagavatam. So I had that personal experience and personal conviction, but you may not want to take that much time. But again, because the nature of the high nature of these scriptures is if you read them carefully, they can reveal them. Krishna can reveal himself through the pages of Bhagavad Gita, through the pages of Bhagavatam. You'll feel it, not immediately that he's going to come dancing before you with his flute, but little by little, you get some drops of realization, some glimpses that this is the truth. Things that I'd never understood throughout my whole life, I read Bhagavad Gita and I went, oh, that's why this is. It just became so clear to me that what was being stated in Bhagavad Gita was true. I could see it, and I could just see it before my eyes, and I never got it before reading. So, yeah, I guess that's good.
No, that was great, Prabhu. Thank you. So this one's kind of similar to what we had when Jay Jagannath Prabhu was actually talking about with controversial statements. But as someone who's experienced like Prabhupada's side of in person and actually, his words versus like what he's written, how do we deal with those like controversial statements that we see? And sometimes they seem as they're conflicting one another, like two different statements. How do we like resolve with that and like feel comfortable with that?
Well, it would be nice to have a concrete example, but anyway, I can get some general ideas. I kind of know what bothers people. I know what bothers me, but I would say, this is my own personal way of dealing with it, is that I know that Srila Prabhupada was a Vaikuntha person. I mean, I get glimpses of that he says something, and because of my conditioning, I take it a certain way. But he's totally not on the bodily platform, and he's not seeing it that way. He sees it in a different way, and what he means by it is something different. So when things like that come up, I just hear them. I just hear it, and I think, well, this doesn't really, I can't really understand this, or this doesn't jive with my conditioning or something like that. But there's, like I said, there's many things that I can't understand in Bhagavatam. How are there eagle birds that come down and pick up elephants, and these are all beyond my understanding. So I just accept that there's things that I won't. I think it's wrong to sometimes people take Prabhupada's statements like very superficially, and that can also be detrimental. That we need, there are different, he does apparently say two different things sometimes. So that means that there's something deeper there that we have to look at. If there's an apparent contradiction, it means, oh, there's something deeper here that we need to understand. And so, yeah, that's personally, I just accept that there's things that I may, according to my conditioning, may not understand right now, may not agree with, according to how I see it. But I believe that if I really understood what Prabhupada meant in the fullest extent, that I would see that that was in fact true. But I'm just not able to understand that right now. And I'm okay with that. maybe that's not a great answer, but it's my personal way of dealing with that.
Well, that was a great answer. I think like a lot of the times, like you just fail to see like the actions versus like the actual words. And so just reconciling it that way. It's great.
Yeah.
So I think we'll take one last question. So this question is kind of like in relation to everything that's going on nowadays that we are seeing in like the news and everything. And I think it's related to Mukunda's second question, but the question is, how can we understand and empathize the violence that's happening today without making excuses like, oh, we're not the body, we're just the soul, or like we're part and parcel of Krishna, so therefore everyone's on the same platform, and like those kind of like generic quotes that are given as like a scapegoat kind of.
Yeah. Well, we do empathize. I mean, Prabhupada makes that point over and over again in Bhagavad Gita. He glorifies Arjuna that he was deeply concerned about the situation at hand and how people were going to suffer. He wasn't callous, you know. It wasn't. Yeah. So I think it's natural, and I think we should be concerned. At the same time, if we think these statements that I'm not the, you're not the body, okay, sometimes we say those glibly. First of all, do we understand that? I mean, that's a profound statement, that to really understand that I'm like this little spirit spark that's floating in 5 airs, that's sitting in this body. And, I'm looking out of these eyes and my God, how did I get this body anyway? Why am I here? To get really some glimpse that I'm a spiritual being and that, that I'm eternal, that's profound. That's very profound. So that's not a glib, shouldn't be a glib statement that, something we just throw out. Or an excuse to be callous. That's also means we're not understanding. But at the same time, we should, this time, I know for me, not being able to travel and do the things I normally do, and, just seeing the craziness that's going on in the world, it's been a time to reflect really deeply, like what is important? Really, what is important? What's important to me? What's important to the world? So if we think really deeply about, what can I do to help? What can I do to help this world? Then we have to, that will look, we will have to look in a spiritual direction. We will, there's no real solution to the world's problems except for spiritual solutions. I don't believe. They have to, it has to come from some enlightenment. And at least, I can try to myself make some spiritual advancement. If, I can't, right? I can't help anyone else if I'm in the same state they're in, Sometimes, people want to fight something that's evil, and they become, in order to fight it, they become just as evil or angry, or, how does that help the problem? What's needed is, an elevation of human consciousness, and at least I can start on my own consciousness. I can work on that. I can look at myself and see what's my relationship with Krishna like. What am I really thinking on a daily basis? Where's my heart at? And if we do that seriously, I don't know. I think that's where we need to start. Like Prabhupada said, surrender means to do the little things. And then we'll get strength to do the big things. Because the little things aren't little, to really turn our heart seriously towards Krishna is a big thing. That's huge. It's something we've been trying to do for millions of births, maybe. So if we can even make steps in that direction and steps towards, our own elevation, that can have a huge impact on ourselves. And hopefully, by Krishna's grace, if enough people do that, it can have a big effect on the world.
Thanks so much, Prabhu. That was a great answer. So I think we'll wrap it up here with questions for today, just for time's sake. Once again, I want to thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for giving us your association and answering those questions for us.
It's so nice to see all of you. Mukunda and Mukunda, and Devaki and Jana, everybody. So yeah, thank you for your association. I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Just before we wrap up, we have a couple announcements to make, and then we'll wrap up for the day.
I know, I've got that. Okay, so I'm gonna start off. Sorry, just quickly. So we have actually a kind of impromptu talk with the Bhavana Prabhu, who's gonna be covering all of the kind of social justice issues that have been popping up over the last week. We felt like this was a really important talk, and Buddha Bhavana Prabhu has a really succinct way of delivering points that we felt like would be important for a conversation like this. So that is this Saturday, June 6th at 11:50 a.m. It would be really nice to have everyone there. If you're available, come and listen. Just because a lot of the stuff that's been happening has been really touchy, and it'd be nice to hear from a spiritual perspective. And then, as usual, so our next Tuesday webinar will be Nityanand Pran Prabhu on June 9th, and he'll be talking a little more about the survival guide to difficulties, and those details will be posted on our social media. Also, the newsletter had a special announcement in it about our summer retreat. So if you go to sanghainitiative.org, you can find some information on there. You just have to click the drop-down menu to go to our newsletter for June 2020, and you'll be able to see some information about our summer retreat and what we're planning on doing. And the announcements about Buddha Bhavana Prabhu and Nityanand Pran Prabhu will be on our social media pretty soon. And any other past recordings you can find on our website as well. And with that, thank you so much, Prabhu. I think that's it from us.
Jai. Hare Krishna.
Well, thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Haribo.
Haribo.
Jai.